This resounding cry for the liberty, equality, and fraternity enjoyed by all free men was a notable invention of the August Decrees, drafted during the so-called symptomatic stage of the French Revolution. Throughout this period of time, revolutionaries marched and rioted in the service of a fickle cause that eventually gave way to the leadership of the ambitious military hero Napoleon Bonaparte. This infamous series of revolts may be traced to its incubation stage in the latter portion of the 18th century, when the vast French peasantry became discontented with the decisions of their Estates General. The ability of elected clergymen of the First Estate and secular officials of the Second to easily disregard the Third Estate's concerns only exacerbated tensions resulting from starvation and economic crises incurred by French involvement in the American Revolution against Britain. The success of the Americans, who faced similar but less extreme treatment from the British government, inspired revolutionaries to take action against the extravagant King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette via the Bread Riots and later the Women's March. The latter act was a continuation of the former, which involved the attempts of the starving populace to seize loaves of bread that had seen a hardly bearable increase in price with France's recent economic downturn. The Women's March sent throngs to the Palace of Versailles to directly threaten the royal family's position in response to Marie Antoinette's naive perceptions of their conditions and rumors of a large supply of food within the palace walls. The symptomatic stage that followed saw far more widespread revolt, spearheaded by the newly formed National Assembly of the Third Estate. Abbé Emmanuel Joseph Cid popularized the Assembly's desire to restructure the long-standing Estates General such that each representative was allowed a vote in order that the Third Estate might see some of its concerns addressed. When the National Assembly was completely barred from political participation as a result, its leaders redoubled their efforts and sought the armament of the peasantry with the storming of the Bastille. The following persecution of French nobility, known as the Great Fear, was intensified by rumored military retaliation, such that the king eventually agreed to a National Constituent Assembly and its August Decrees. In 1791, he also accepted their proposed constitution and the confiscation of church lands that it entailed, in the hope that Austrian and Prussian fighters might arrive and restore his position. His attempts at flight upon their approach is traditionally accepted as the beginning of the crucial crisis stage of the French Revolution, during which Jacobin and Girondin leaders seized power by executing the royal family. This stage represented a decisive turning point in the revolution, as both groups adopted radical Enlightenment-era styles of governance and began a reign of terror that targeted supposed anti-revolutionary activists. Girondin moderates and political rivals comprised the majority of the radical Jacobin leader Maximilien de Robespierre's victims as head of the Committee for Public Safety only a short time before he himself was executed on similar charges. When almost all of the previous monarchy's influence and that of the early stages of the Revolution had been thusly abandoned, the French Revolution entered its convalescent stage. Even though rioting remained almost constant, the Revolution entered a period of significant change that signaled its transition to the rule of Napoleon Bonaparte and the re-centralization of government based on his policies. This began with the establishment of the ineffective Directory as a means of satisfying the needs of the populace, a governing body that quickly appealed to Bonaparte for support as a heroic figurehead. Regardless of the Directory's influence, Napoleon Bonaparte soon established himself as the militant dictator of France, and his subsequent conquests greatly enriched the nation's dwindling treasury. They and he also provided a means for French nationalism to increase and centralize, signaling the complete resolution of Revolution-era tensions.